Hey, welcome back to the channel. So we have quite a new game here called Summoners or Chronicles, and after a lot of trials and errors, I can finally make you a guide that can maximize your potential, efficiency, and effectiveness in playing this game. So without further ado, let's start off with the summoner choice. So at the very beginning of the game, you are told to choose your summoner, but don't worry too much about which summoner you choose at the beginning of the game, because they all share the same progress. They only have a different level, and the only thing that is different among the three of them are their gameplay and also their main storyline and subquests. And the rest are all connected. Your monster choices, your monsters levels, your dungeon progress, your raid progress, and everything else. Even your inventory is shared. So you don't need to worry too much. But the thing is that they still do affect your gameplay within the game, because they have a different gameplay mechanic for each of these summoners, and you need to choose whether which one suits your gameplay the most. So don't ever trust the tier list that you see on the internet for every single game that you play, because especially in this game, the tier list is totally dependent on the summoner that you choose, because you can only bring 3 monsters aside from your summoner. So if you choose the healer, you need a monster that can tank and deal damage for you. If you choose the mage, then you need a monster that can tank damage and support you. And if you choose the tank, you need a monster that can deal damage and support you, because you will be the tank yourself. So your monster's choices will totally depend on which summoner you choose. So do not blindly trust the tier list that you see on the internet, because it might work for the other guy, but it might not work for you. So at any point in the video, you can just pause my video and see every single summoner skills, and you can see whichever one you like to play, whichever one suits your gameplay, and whether you want to be a support, to be a damage dealer, and to be the tank. But all in all, they can perform as well as an actual monster. So you can count your summoner as another monster that you can change your element in the middle of the fight in whichever element that you require at that point in time. So they are just like a monster on steroids. So in summary, Kina, the healer, is a very well-balanced summoner, in which case she can provide both offensive buffs and defensive buffs to her allies and even to her own monsters. So she is very good and relevant in every single content in the game. So if you are the type of players who like to support others and run around in the backline while letting them do the job for you, then Kina is your best choice. On the other hand, Orbia and Cleve are very specialized in their gameplay, in which case Orbia is very much offensive while Cleve is very much defensive. So Orbia the mage can put some debuffs while dealing a ton of damage herself. So if you bring monsters that can support her in dealing even more damage through attack up buff, critical rate up buff, attack speed buff, etc, etc, she can become an actual monster, in which case she can deal even higher damage than the monsters that you see in the tier list. So she is very vulnerable into getting killed, so you also need a monster that can fully protect her and not letting her die. You can also just go full offensive by bringing all the PS monsters together with Orbia if you want to deal as high damage as possible while letting your allies or other players into protecting you. So that is also an option whenever you play with Orbia. So the last one, Cliff, is the tank. He is pretty straightforward. He is very hard to kill while being annoying as hell because he can do a lot of crowd control effect while debuffing the enemy's capabilities into dealing damage to his allies. But because of that, you need the help from your own monsters or even from your allies to deal the damage for you, because you are just a punching bag. But if you pretty much have a really good healer in your monster lineup, you can be pretty much immortal. So after you finish selecting your summoner, you will be brought to the tutorial area. Just follow whatever the NPC tells you to do, and finally you will reach to the point where you can access the menu. As per every single gacha game in the world, you will have a crystal currency that you can either use to gacha or buy items from the cash shop. Do remember to buy items from the cash shop first before you use the currency to gacha, because there are some items that worth much more than actually just straight up use your crystal to gacha from the cash shop. Mainly the Summoner Chronicles Plus 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those things worth much more than actually just using the crystal for anything else in the game. You can just skip the consumables because they are optionals, but remember that the Path of Growth ticket package and Essence Dungeon ticket package can be purchased every week. So you need to buy this ticket package every week when you play this game. So only after you purchase everything that you can buy from the cash shop using this crystal, then you can use your crystal for everything else in the game. Now on to the next point. This game have a ton of monsters to choose from, so it will be very overwhelming, especially for players who never played Summoner's War before. So the game already give you a free monsters that you can use to clear every single content in the game, which is the Blue Garuda, the Fire Fairy, and then the Wind Pixie. You can use 3 of them to finish the whole game by just upgrading those 3. So if you want to save your materials, which is very recommended, because the materials will feel like you get a lot of them at the beginning of the game, but trust me, in every single gacha games, the more you upgrade your monsters, the more you will use those materials. So actually, your materials are very limited. Even though it feels a lot at the beginning, like it's very cheap to upgrade your monsters, it can get really expensive later on in the game. So don't anyhow just upgrade every single monster that you find in the game, but just use the 3 monsters that they gave you at the start of the game, at the beginning of the game, and just use 3 of them until you are stuck or until you end the main storyline. So when you are stuck, whether it's in a dungeon or any content in the game, do check the power requirement of that dungeon, because there is this thing called power, which totals the amount of monster level, the awakening, the skill level of your monster, your summoner equipment into a total power. And if your total power is below the required power to enter that dungeon, you will get a very nasty penalty. So it's not your fault or the fault of your monster if you cannot clear that content. It's mostly because you don't have enough power to challenge that dungeon. So just stick with the 3 monsters that you get in the beginning of the game, and just keep upgrading them until you reach the required power needed to clear that dungeon, and eventually you will be able to clear every single content in the game except the far end dungeon and raid, with the 3 beginner monster. Especially the Blue Garuda, because the Blue Garuda can reduce the cooldown of your monsters and summoner skills. So if you soul link your Garuda, which means that you manually use his skills, you can spam that skill every time your summoner or your monster skill is on cooldown. So basically you can make your entire team to spam their abilities by just spamming your Garuda skill. So compared to other gacha games, there are ways for you to get the monsters that you want here without doing gacha by using the selection ticket and also the selective summon. So you can get this selection ticket from your mail when you first started the game. You can trade this item to the NPC for a selection of 4-star monsters and 3-star monsters that you want, and it will be 100% guaranteed. And the second way is to use the selective summon. So in this selective summon, after you do some quests, you will be given this quest to summon a monster using the selective summon. You can actually just skip this quest by just using a normal scroll to summon a random monster, and the quest will be done. And you just leave the selective summon until the end of time. So this selective summon is almost guarantee you to get the 5 stars that you want, because you can just keep resetting this selective summon, and even after the resummon number is depleted, you can just talk to the NPC again and they will give you a quest to reset this selective summon. So literally you have unlimited tries for this selective summon. So don't worry, you only need to do a little quest which kills like 30 monsters on the field, and you can just come back to the NPC and they will reset your selective summon, and you can keep resetting, resummoning, and redoing this all over again. So only at the end game where you know exactly what you want, then you can be sure that you will maximize the usage of this selective summon. So the tips and tricks into doing this is that you can just keep using your standard scroll and your normal mystic scroll to gacha your ways into getting a random monsters. And just like every single gacha games in the world, the more duplicates you have of the same monsters, the stronger that monster's gonna be. So the tricks into this is to get a random monster using your normal means, and if you get a monster that have a lot of duplicates on, and you are sure that this monster will be of very much useful to you, then you can use the selective summon to get another monster of the same one to increase the awakening of that monster, or you can select another monster that complement these monsters that you already have, or just combo it with your monster or anything that you need. Basically, you can use this selective summon to strengthen the current 5-star monsters that you already have, or you can use it to get the 5-star monsters that you never be able to get. But do remember that this selective summon cannot summon a light and dark monster, so only the standard fire, wind, and water monsters you can summon using the selective monster. So that's all the tips and tricks for starting the game. Hope you guys get a lot of good information out of this, and hopefully you can maximize your monster's potential from the beginning of the game until the end of the game. So hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.